Good evening, Tansei Anin. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. Winnipeg homicide investigators have identified the woman whose remains were found along the bank of the Red River on April the 15th. The hunt continues now for whoever killed 40-year-old June Christine Johnson. A warning to our viewers, some details in this story may be upsetting. Leanne Sanders reports.
Sergeant Wade McDonald of the Homicide Division revealed few details about the ongoing investigation. He wouldn't say how or where Johnson was killed, but confirmed she was dismembered before being left near the Red River in downtown Winnipeg. He says over 60 forensics and homicide investigators have pored over hours of data trying to establish a timeline of what happened to Johnson. She was last seen alive in downtown Winnipeg in February 2023. Johnson's family provided a statement to police, and McDonald read it during today's news conference.
Prior to her addiction, June was loving, devoted mom who loved her children deeply. She loved hard, and family was of great importance to her. June had a great sense of humor, was very outgoing, and we are going to cherish our good times and memories with her. Sadly, addiction took over all aspects of her life, and we lost her in this very tragic way.
McDonald said police have been in contact with Johnson's family since 2 days after the remains were discovered. The family and police are appealing for information from the public on anything that may help find Johnson's killer. Winnipeg police confirm that Johnson, who according to her family was not Indigenous, had previously gone missing on Christmas Eve 2020, but was found safe 2 days later. Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Anyone with information is encouraged to call Winnipeg Police Homicide at 204-986-6508 or Crime Stoppers at 204-786-TIPS. Well, the NDP was taking the Trudeau government to task in the House of Commons on Wednesday for failing to live up to its commitments on shelters and transitional housing, for Indigenous women and Two-Spirit people. NDP MP Leah Gazan called on the government to reverse a funding cut to women's shelters.
Mr. Speaker, the federal watchdog for housing rights has called to investigate this government's failure to prevent and eliminate homelessness among women and gender diverse people across Canada, especially at risk Indigenous women and Two-Spirit people. And instead of addressing it, the Liberals refused to reverse their cut of $150 million to women's shelters, while barely releasing any funds they first announced in 2020 for shelters and transitional housing. When will this government stop with the empty promises and deal with this housing crisis with the urgency it requires?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I disagree with the Honourable Member. We've gone from just over $2 billion in funding for Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy, to almost $4 billion. That's a doubling of the funding, going to over 5,000 different projects and helping tens of thousands of Canadians to be diverted away from homelessness to permanent housing solutions as well as transitional homes. We've also introduced a rapid housing initiative that is having tremendous success on the ground, Mr. Speaker.
Public Safety Minister Bill Blair says more than 200 wildfires are burning across Western Canada, 75 of which are out of control, and weather in the coming days will only make things worse. But he told the House of Commons the federal government will be there for Canadians who are affected.
Unfortunately, mostly hot, dry, windy conditions over the next week will exacerbate the situation, and shifting winds have pushed smoke across the country, impacting a number of urban communities, Calgary and Winnipeg in particular. Mr. Speaker, close to 30,000 Canadians have been evacuated from their communities, and the Government of Canada is there for those Canadians. We've deployed Canadian Armed Forces resources, the Canadian Red Cross, additional police resources, and together we will be there for the people of Alberta, British Columbia, and Saskatchewan through this very difficult time.
A growing list of issues are causing serious concern for a First Nation in the Yukon. They're calling on the territorial government to help them by declaring a state of emergency. Our reporter Sarah Connors tells us why.
The Ross River Dena Council in Ross River, Yukon is facing crisis, and it wants all the help it can get.
You know, we're worried here in Kaskakea. We're hitting alarms now so that we could address some of these issues.
On Friday, the First Nation passed a by-council resolution declaring a state of emergency. Its chief says many issues are impacting the community of 350 people. Perhaps the most pressing is the disappearance of 40-year-old Ramona Peter almost 3 weeks ago.
It's just affecting everybody in the community, and we're just hoping to find her.
Other issues include a surge of predatory drug dealers and bootleggers preying on vulnerable community members.
See, we're losing too much people to drugs and alcohol, and it's becoming an emergency.
Loblaw says the First Nation needs Yukon government's help to provide extra resources, like more boots on the ground when it comes to searching for Peter.
So these governments have these fiduciary obligations, and we feel like they're not being met adequately.
A spokesperson for Yukon government says Premier Ranj Pillay is taking the situation seriously. Pillay is meeting with the First Nation next week and has offered to assist with federal coordination. Chief Loblaw is hopeful commitment from the government will help provide a happy, healthy, and safe future for his people.
We'd like to see more of our people out there being who they are as Dena, and not being, pulled down by community issues.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
All right, we have to pause our program briefly. We still have plenty of news still to come. Welcome back to APTN National News. Unionized workers for the Iqaluit Housing Authority in Nunavut are currently on their 59th day of strike action. Jason Rochon is president of the Nunavut Employees Union. He says wage increases of 1.25 and 1.5% proposed by the Iqaluit Housing Authority do not keep up with inflation. 12 out of the 13 of the striking workers are Inuit, and Rochon says the Housing Authority is leaving them and Inuit living in public housing behind.
And now they're talking about not wanting to compensate local workers for speaking Inuktitut in the workplace. And we find that very disgusting and disrespectful. We know that our members are going into workplaces, and there's elders and there's people that are unilingual and they only speak Inuktitut, and they're really happy to see beneficiaries in their homes speaking in Inuktitut, and they're comfortable when the work is getting done. And right now, we're in a fight for our lives.
Now, we reached out to the Nunavut government and did not hear back by airtime. And now to British Columbia, where a single mother of 4 spent a Mother's Day she and her family will never forget. APTN's Tina House has this story.
It's so much. I feel like I'm going through a death over and over and over again. Karen Moraes is overcome with emotion as she surveys the charred remains of what was just days ago her beautiful family home. It all started around 9 p.m. this past Sunday, which was Mother's Day, when one of her daughters, whose bedroom was at the back of the house, noticed her closed blinds on her window light up orange in color.
Yeah, my daughter ran out of her room, ran down the hallway, banged on my door and said our house is on fire. And I got out of bed, I ran downstairs, I told the kids call 911, I opened the back door and saw the gazebo where the hot tub was in flames in the backside. By the time my daughter, Madison, woke up, she thought it was hail, and it was actually the flames hitting her window.
Moraes says she tried to use a fire extinguisher to put out the flames, but within minutes, the fire spread quickly. She told her 4 kids to grab their pets and leave the house immediately. The flames consumed not only their house, but 3 other houses nearby. In total, 11 people made it out safely, but everyone lost everything they owned. And for single mom Karen, it's devastating.
We just had the clothes in our backs, which I was in pajamas. I was ready for bed, so I'm wearing donated clothes that someone dropped off at our door in our hotel. I'm still in the slippers that I ran out of the house with.
Karen, who just found full-time work again last November, says her family has already been through so much. She says she went through a divorce and worked hard to create stability for her and her kids, one of whom is autistic and relies on a support dog. Karen is also a community leader and ran for city council last year in Langley to create positive changes for Indigenous people. Although she didn't get elected, she devotes her time to helping others in need. Ironically, her job was as a housing support worker, and now she is the one who needs help. This GoFundMe campaign has raised over $6,000 so far, but her family needs to start again. Her eldest daughter is graduating next month and is in need of a prom dress, along with replacing an entire household. Salvage crews are now on site, as well as fire investigators.
He said there's nothing salvageable in my bedroom or my closets or anything right now.
And just as we were interviewing Karen outside of her former home, a fire investigator was able to salvage their IDs and something else that means so much to her.
It was hard to see. I couldn't really. It's kind of wet, but I just kind of grabbed a few things
this
that
is
were
it.
on the rack and
this is it.
I don't know. So, but it's I don't know what this other stuff is, but it's wet.
No, this is what I wanted. My second husband made it for me. We have 4 kids together. There's 4 kids there. I have 7 in all. He made this for me one night. I didn't even know the man could sew. I worked night shift in the hospitals in Seattle, and I came home one day and this was hanging up in our living room.
For now, the family is staying temporarily at a hotel until the end of the week, and then she's not sure what they will do. They were renting the home and did not have tenant insurance. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Over 40 firefighters fought the blaze, and 1 firefighter was taken away after being injured by an exploding propane tank. Tina House, APTN National News, Langley.
Today is the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. Executive Director Karen Sharma of the Manitoba Human Rights Commission joins us now to talk about the significance of the day. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today. First off, can you tell us why a day against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia is necessary?
Well, we think that this day, which is a day that's recognized internationally, is so significant because, you know, in our communities, homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia continue to be considerable issues, one that we are facing locally in a quite significant way presently. So it's a day that we think it's important that we all recognize and really reflect and reaffirm our commitment to standing firm and resolutely against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia.
Now, a school division in Brandon, Manitoba is considering banning books with 2SL LGBTQ content. Another school in Winnipeg saw similar books as well as a pride flag stolen from their property. How do actions like these affect 2SL LGBTQ youth and students?
Well, you know, we've been thinking a lot about this since the reports have been circulating in our community of these questions about banning books and the removal of books from schools and other pride symbols. We think they have a significant impact on 2SL LGBTQ youth. We've done some research and it's pretty unequivocal that where there is an embracing environment and symbols of pride and recognition are present in courses and curriculum, 2SL LGBTQ youth feel included, they feel represented, they feel valued, and in an environment where we know 2SL LGBTQ youth are facing increased violence, harassment, bullying at disproportionate rates, it is so significant that we take these steps and measures to ensure that our youth are safe and included.
Well, Karen, that's really well said, and I want to say thank you, miigwech, to you for joining us and talking about this day with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We have to take one more short break on the news. Still to come, highlights from today's In Focus. back. It's time now for our photo of the day. An early morning rising sun in Manitoba appears to take on a red glow through the smoke and haze brought on by forest fires in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Thanks to Dave Menzies for today's photo. If you have a great photo, family, friends, animals, nature, or the land, you can send that photo to share@aptn.ca. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. We start on the east coast, 10 degrees in St. John's and 11 in Halifax. 3 degrees in Nain and 8 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 14 degrees in Clear in Quebec City and 15 in Montreal. 19 degrees in London and 17 in North Bay. 16 in Elliott Lake and 16 in Wawa. 13 degrees in Churchill and 18 in Puckawagan. Some rain and 8 degrees in Barons River and rain and 12 in Winnipeg. 16 in Regina and 18 in Saskatoon. 18 degrees in Buffalo Narrows and 20 in Stony Rapids. As we make our way west at 25 in High Level and 25 in Peace River. 22 degrees in Edmonton and 22 in Calgary. 24 in Vancouver and 27 in Bella Coola. 16 in Sandspit and 27 in Fort Nelson. 26 degrees in Whitehorse and 13 in Rock River. 20 degrees in Norman Wells and 28 in Trout Lake. 6 in Fort McPherson and 14 in Colville Lake. -6 in Cambridge Bay and 1 degree in Chesterfield. -1 in Aglulic and -2 in Clyde River. On today's In Focus, we put missing Indigenous people in focus. We talked to family members on how they are handling with current missing loved ones and how others were dealing with their situation after they were found. Also, there was a case of a baby taken at birth and told they had died, but only to find out many years later that may not be the case. Take a look.
And so when somebody says, no, we're not going to look for your loved ones, no, we're not going to support you, we aren't going to take that as an answer. No is not an answer, and we will keep pushing. And to me, if you're not going to be a part of the solution, then you're just a part of the problem. And if you're going to be a problem, then you just need to move out of the way so we can actually get this work done.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledging what's happening and acknowledging that, you know, there are 2 women that are lying in the bottom of a landfill and have been for the last year, and if you don't search, their remains are going to be there for time immemorial and forever. Mm-hmm. And we have been told that. So it is feasible, and there is a good chance that we could recover them, and then there's a chance that we might not too. And while I acknowledge that, you should still at least try, and then for next steps in the future.
Part of the whole process of truth and reconciliation, which we're all supposed to be engaged in, you know? Mm-hmm. This is kind of a next level kind of understanding of what might have been going on during the 60 scoop, I think. And if this was going on, I think it's important to know about it and come to some kind of reckoning about it. Mm-hmm.
Those who are found and are buried someplace, there is that hope that you can upload your DNA, you know, get your blood work done, send it in, get it back, and just hang on to that information until you suspect or you think you can just provide that information to some of these DOE projects. Mm-hmm. What I believe is they will utilize your information should any matches come up at some point in time.
A traditional skill as old as time itself, moose hide tanning has kept First Nations people in the Yukon clothed and sheltered for thousands of years. But with the practice dwindling in recent decades, one First Nation in the territory is doing its part to teach the art of moose hide tanning to the next generation. Here's Sarah Connors with more.
When it comes to moose hide tanning, every step is a labor of love. The labor-intensive, multi-step process usually takes several days to complete, but every step is worth it if it means keeping tradition alive. No one knows the process better than Kwanlin Dun elder Gertie Tom. The 92-year-old knowledge keeper literally wrote the book on moose hide tanning.
How to Tan Hide in the Native Way by Gertie Tom.
The esteemed expert began learning the skill when she was 8 years old. For her, it was a rite of passage.
And watching my mother, what she does, and then if you really want to learn, you got to put your mind into what you cut. It is a lot of work.
Tom says when she was growing up, tanning was critical for survival.
So important because of the olden days, we got no store to buy clothes.
Today, moose hide tanning is practiced far less than it was just a few decades ago. It's why the Kwanlin Dun First Nation in Whitehorse held a camp for its citizens to relearn and reclaim the important traditional practice. That practice is close to Stephen Shorty's heart. Shorty is a drum maker who works with caribou hides. This is his first time working with moose hide.
It's a little bit different, easier, because caribou is a lot thinner than a moose. Like, as you can see, the moose, this is pretty thick.
Today, Shorty is scraping fur off the hide. It's a skill he's happy to pass on to younger generations.
That's how you know you're doing it right. Want to try a bite? I'm glad to see that they're looking forward to doing stuff like this, but it takes time to learn.
That learning isn't easy. Transforming animal skin into durable material is a time-consuming, tedious process. Luckily, today's efforts received Tom's seal of approval.
Yeah, that's what I know.
For outreach worker Troy Friday, seeing families come together is what makes events like these special.
To see this knowledge being passed down is extremely important. To see and learn words in traditional ways and practices is very important to keep our traditions and culture alive.
The importance of tradition isn't lost on Kiana Blake. The 17-year-old is learning to make a drumstick. It's a practice she's finding challenging but rewarding.
Yeah, my first stick, we had to throw it out because it was just way too crooked, but my second stick was very even.
Blake says seeing traditional practices firsthand makes her feel connected to her culture.
It's really cool seeing how our elders' traditions are being passed on to the younger generations and how we're going to be able to teach our younger youth.
It's young people like Blake that Tom hopes will carry on tradition.
This is what is dying off, just like our language. This is the same thing almost. That hopefully, like some of them want to learn, they keep on going what they show them here.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
All right, that's all we have for you tonight. We will leave you, though, with one of the cutest videos you'll see in a while. This video of a Yupik Alaskan toddler performing a traditional dance is going viral on Facebook. 3-year-old Uriah Washington from Stebbins, Alaska, was captured dancing his heart out at a playground. His mother's friend Rhiannon Watson captured him here, and his mother Kayleen says Uriah spends a lot of time watching traditional dance videos online, and this is him freestyling. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a great night.